Hi everyone, this is Jerry, and this is a game analysis between Garry Kasparov and the musician Sting. This game was played back in 2000. It was a simultaneous exhibition that Kasparov held. Rating and commenting this video are appreciated, and any questions you have for me, feel free to send one my way. Hope you enjoy the video. Kasparov opens the game with the move pawn to g3, making way for the bishop to come to g2. Sting opens up with knight to f6, a developing move. Bishop to g2, development. Pawn to e5, establishing a pawn on one of these four central squares, and also allowing the bishop to come out along this diagonal. Pawn to d3, this move is directed at securing the king's knight development to the f3 square. Notice that if the knight were to come here right away, black could play pawn to e4, the knight is attacked and will now need to find a new home. So first, pawn to d3, bishop to c5, development and making way to castle. Knight to f3, development, attacking the pawn and also getting ready to castle. Pawn to d6, defense, and making way for the bishop to come out along this diagonal. Castle, developing move, and black does similar with castling. Pawn to c4, a move directed at securing this d5 square. White would like to prevent black from advancing this pawn to d5 so that the position does not become open. If the position comes open, the black rooks will maybe have something to do constructive in the position. White's other idea is to be preventing the black pawn from coming to e4. Knight to c6, development. Knight to c3, development, and this knight is nicely placed such that it's guarding both d5 and e4. Bishop to g4, development, and getting ready to form a battery. If black is allowed to, he'd like to come to d7 and focus his sights on moving the g4 bishop to h3, and once there it could exchange itself off for white's king bishop. But Kasparov stops that right away and just puts a question to the bishop. Pawn to h3. Bishop takes knight, and now bishop captures bishop, and white has already accumulated at least one advantage in this position. White gave up a knight and in return got a bishop. Bishops are generally considered to be better than knights. One reason for that is because bishops are long-range pieces. Queen to d7, attacking the h3 pawn. Bishop to g2, defense. Pawn to a6, a move directed at preserving this bishop in order to meet a move like knight to a4 with bishop to a7. Pawn to e3, taking away the d4 square from the bishop and knight. Bishop to b4, attacking the knight. Knight to e2. This move is a bit awkward. It seems like white is wasting time by retreating a piece, but that time lost will be gained back with moves like pawn to a3 and pawn to b4, where in both instances those moves will be attacking this bishop. Rook on a to e8. White is trying to maybe get this sort of advance in, but he's not able to do so successfully. In fact, no pawn move that black makes in this game benefits his position. Maybe a better try is to try and get a move like pawn from f7 to f5, where once that pawn is there, then maybe a move like pawn to e4 or f5 is more of a possibility. As it turns out, black is not able to do pawn moves which are beneficial to him, and as a result Kasparov is able to just squeeze him. Rook on a to e8, pawn to a3, attacking the bishop. Bishop c5, queen to c2, a move directed at preventing both pawn advances to d5 and e4. E4 is guarded 3 times by the queen, pawn, bishop, and if pawn to d5, pawn takes pawn, and black doesn't have time to recapture the pawn here because the queen is hitting the bishop. So after queen to c2, we have rook to e7. Black unfortunately is doing something equivalent to trying to walk through a door that is not yet opened, or in other words, this e file is closed. Because there's a black and white pawn, it's considered to be closed. Rooks function much better on both semi-open or open files. The e file is closed. These rooks really don't contribute well to the position. Pawn to b4, attacking the bishop. Bishop to a7, retreat. Knight to c3, repositioning, focusing again on these two squares. Rook on f to e8. Unless this file can open up, these rooks basically just look silly. Bishop to d2, connecting the white rooks. And now a blunder. Pawn to d5. This pawn advance needed the support of one additional piece. Right now it's attacked 3 times, and it's only defended twice. And that's just not enough. So miscalculation by black, and now it's just way downhill from here. After pawn takes pawn, the knight is attacked, the knight has to retreat. Pawn to e4, just securing that pawn plus that white has. Pawn to h6, making way for the king to come to h7 in the event of a white rook maybe getting to the back rank at a later stage in the game. Bishop to e3, attacking the bishop, and now pawn to b6. And this looks a bit awkward because this bishop really isn't doing anything constructive now. But if the bishop were to take, that would result in pawn takes bishop, and now this f file is half open, and so you might see moves like rook to f3 followed by rook on a to f1. So although these pawns are doubled, what you have as compensation is play along the f file. So instead of bishop takes bishop, Sting plays pawn to b6, knight to e2 along the queen to focus on c6, knight to b7, repositioning, eyeing up the d6 square, pawn to g4, making way for the knight to pivot on g3, and from there it could go to f5 or even h5, rook to c8, knight to g3, knight g6, and now queen to c6, offering a queen exchange, often a very good strategy. If you're up material, try and trade down, or trade the queens. Queen takes queen, pawn takes queen, and now rook to d8 with thoughts of adding pressure to d3. Pawn to a4, stopping the knight from coming to b5. Knight c8, the rook is now attacking the pawn. These are just one move threats by black, and they're easily stopped by white. Rook on f to d1, defense. Rook to e6, attacking the pawn. Pawn to b5, supporting the pawn. Pawn to a5, and this bishop is officially a prisoner. It can't get out because of these pawns. This bishop is essentially off the board. Bishop f3, repositioning. Black could already resign at this point in the game. It's just a matter of winning for black. Not that Sting was really going to beat Kasparov, but rook on e to d6, adding pressure to d3. Bishop e2, defense. Knight to h7 with thoughts of coming to g5. Kasparov takes that square away. Knight to e7, knight to f5, once again just getting ready to exchange more pieces. Knight takes knight, pawn on g takes knight. Pawn to f6, lending support to e5. Rook to a3, adding a defender to d3. King to h8, rook to d2, rook to g8, getting ready to come to g6 to open up this file. Kasparov stops that as well and clamps down on the g6 square. Knight to g5, getting ready to come to maybe h3. That's not really a threat. King to f1, knight to h3, bishop to g4, attacking the knight. Knight f4, and now we see pawn to d4. Often a good strategy. This pawn right now is a defender of the knight. A good strategy is to attack the defender of one's pieces. And now just a serious blunder. Pawn takes pawn, allows bishop captures knight, and it's just a matter of winning this game very quickly. The bishop is now attacking the rook moves out of the way. White plays to e2 with the king. The bishop could take the pawn, but why do that? This bishop is already trapped, so why give him the opportunity to maybe escape along this diagonal? Rook to e8, king to d3, defends the pawn. Rook e7, bishop d1, black doubles rooks, pawn to f3 supporting e4. Rook to d8, bishop b3, and black resigns, and for good reason. There's no way to stop the following moves by white. This is how white would improve his position if black were to play on, let me just move back and forth with this bishop. In the meantime, white could make these sorts of moves where the rooks are just going to double on the g-file, and these two bishops will just rake down along these diagonals, and white will essentially crash through on g7. So that's all for this video. I hope you got something out of it. Rating and commenting are appreciated. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.